friends as family. I am very excited to be here today. And you'll see in a minute how Adam and I planned his talk together with mine. We'll start with a great big challenge. And the challenge will be that you're each going to get a present from me. And while you're doing that, you're still going to be listening to me. So let's try it. So please give out the present, and I will explain what it is as it is given out. But we said that the challenge is that you keep listening to me. So let's try it. I want to tell you a story about a menorah. And the story is, one day I was sitting in Tel Aviv, in a very important place for us. This is an office of people who finished our program. Now there are going to be already 2 rabbis there who deal with public education in Israel. And we were sitting and discussing different things. We finished our meeting, a knock on the door, in comes the next meeting, which is a mother, a 12-year-old girl, and a father. Now, you have to imagine this picture. The people that I was sitting in with the meeting leave the room and enter the room, those 3 people. A mother, a father, and a girl who really didn't want to be there. I mean, every educator, every person who works with children knows this feeling that sometimes these children are brought to the rabbi, or are brought to the teacher, or are brought to the psychologist, and they really, really don't want to be there. So this was this little girl. And they walk into the room, and we introduce ourselves, and we sit down, and I start to ask her questions. And her head is all the way down, she's not looking up, it's just not going to work. And I'm asking the parents, what is your vision of the bat mitzvah? And the father says what he thinks, and the mother says what she thinks. And I ask the little girl, and she mumbles something, nothing. And I absolutely don't know what to do. So I try to ring the bells and have all kinds of fascinating ideas of let's do a tour here and a tour there, let's go here, let's do that. Nothing. I then understand that the story behind it is that the father is religious. The mother converted to Judaism. They are now divorced, and they are both doing a bat mitzvah for their child. Not an easy situation for any of them. I then think, what am I going to do? And then I think back to meeting Sherwin. Sherwin saying to me, this is a challenge. Which means, get it together. It is up to you. It is not going to work it out by itself. And you cannot leave them because they came to you. So you need to figure out the solution. So we decide about the next meeting, and I go home and I think, what am I going to do with this? We don't have a congregation. We don't have a wonderful home like the Birmingham Temple. Where am I going to bring these people? How am I going to inspire them? What am I going to do with this girl? And I offer them the next best thing, the Israeli Museum. And if you haven't been there, in 2:15, we are all going to be there. And in the Israeli Museum, there is a home. It's a public sphere. It is not a congregational sphere. And we walk around and we look at Jewish culture. And we try to show different works of art. And slightly, you see that she starts looking at things. Things start interest for her. I see that there's a spark in her eyes when we look at the menorahs. We look at the menorahs that come from all over the world, from Morocco and from Poland and from America and from Israel. Some made out of sardine cans and some made out of gold and others of silver and some of beads. She's so amazed by all of this. And she says to me, this is really exciting. She finally says something to me. And then we leave the Israeli Museum, they go back to Tel Aviv, they call me from the phone on the way, and she says, Sivan, what I want to do is a menorah. I said, really? What kind of menorah do you want to do? She says, I don't know, I want to make a menorah, something like the menorahs that we saw. I want to make a menorah out of clay. And I said to her, well, menorahs have stories behind them. So what kind of story would you like to tell? And she says, I don't know, let's think of something. So there's a reason to meet. And we meet again. And this time we have a discussion about the meaning of bat mitzvah and the concept of heroism. And we talked about Jewish heroes, women Jewish heroines. And we talk about stories from the Bible, and we talk about her family, and we talk about the Christian side of the family and the Jewish side of the family, and we talk about her future and what she would like. And she says, you know what? I like this story about this beautiful woman called Bathsheba, the one that bathed on the roof. So we learn the story of Bathsheba. And she goes home and she makes a sculpture of Bathsheba. And then she comes back the next time when we talk about Esther, because that's what she wanted. So we study about the Queen Esther. And she goes home and she makes another sculpture of another heroine. And on. We have 8 lights, right? So on, we have more and more heroines. And then one day she comes in and I say to her, let's think about your family. And she says, well, there are heroines in my family. When I think about my grandmother, and she refers to her Jewish mother-born grandmother. And I said to her, what about your Christian grandmother? Well, she says she's Christian. So I said, what? So she's not a heroine? She hasn't, and we talk about her family and the way that she supported their family, etc., etc. And she says, yes, I never thought about that. And she goes home and she makes a sculpture. By the time we meet, this is our almost last meeting, we have a full menorah. We have heroines from the Bible. We have, by the way, a candle for Henrietta Soul. And we have the mother and both grandmothers. But we're missing something. We're missing the shamash. And I say to her, who's going to be lighting this menorah? And this little girl, who didn't look me in the eye, now could say, me. And she went home and did a sculpture of herself. And she lit the menorah during her bat mitzvah. Now this is the story I couldn't tell you without the Birmingham temple. Without coming here and every service, watching how this menorah behind me is lit. How much this light is so important to this community. It is because it's meaningful. It is because we do it together. It is because of the different sayings that Rabbi Shalom said before about light. But it is because of the homes that you all come from and the homes to which you return. So my present to you tonight is a very small one. It's really a present that will fit in a matchbox. You will all get a sticker to put on your own matchboxes, which you will get somewhere else. And inside the matchbox, there is a little family service. And it is called Lighten Up, Happy Hanukkah. And it is dedicated to the Birmingham Temple in the memory of Rabbi Sherwin T. Wine, our teacher, my rabbi, our friend. And when we open it up in the first page, there is a blank page. And in that page, I hope you will make sure that everybody that will do the service will sign up. And this is an old Jewish tradition of sitting together around the Pesach Seder and writing the people that were celebrating with you. And in the next page, our famous song, Eifo Ori, Our Light. And the next one is an older song, which is called Mi Yamalel, who can retell the things that befell us. And the next page is a riddle. After all, it is a matchbox, and you should be using that. And you sit around with your family to play some games on Hanukkah. And the next one, as you will see, are logos of our different organizations. And the question is, what is the source? Which will give you an opportunity to talk to your friends and family about our logos, about our organizations. And the next one, I said it's connected to Rabbi Shalom's talk. The ancient challenge was how to turn a menorah, 7 lights, into the Chanukiah, 9 lights. Yours is to add 4 matches to the 7 to form 9. Don't turn it around. Turn the next page though. And then you will see the Chanukiot, the same Chanukiot I told you about in the museum. And these Chanukiot all come from different places in the world. And then there is a prayer of Let It Be, that you all know how to sing. And then a few things that we have to say, or we could say, about light. A light increases itself by lighting another. Lighting our menorah connects us. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. Let us light our menorah to increase our shared experience. Happy 50. And on the other side, sorry, stop. And on the other side, there are some answers to some of the questions that we pose. So I suggest you don't look at the answers now, and that you keep it for your service at home, because every survey, every educational survey would tell you that there must be a correlation between what you do in your organization, be it a school or a congregation, and what you do at home. And this dialogue between what we do at home and what we do in our congregation is very important. You are the rabbis in the home. You are the connectors. There is no future to us as a Jewish people if we don't all engage actively in doing and creating. Not only participating and listening, but in actual doing and creating. And this dialogue should be never ending. This dialogue is an international dialogue. It exceeds time and place. Think about it. We're talking about an institution of synagogues which we know started in the 3rd century BC. Can you imagine how far, a long time this was? And this was during a time when there were temples. The Jewish people had a temple when they invented the synagogue. What does it tell you? The temple just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't enough. Now, is there any way to prove that all the people that went to synagogue actually went to the temple? No. The temple was far. It was expensive to go there. And maybe some people even didn't like all the sacrifices that were going on there. Maybe people wanted something else. The synagogues were hotels. The synagogues were a place of learning. The synagogues were a place of getting together. That is the meaning of the term, which derives from Greek, from being together, with a dialogue from the Hebrew of hitkanes, of coming together. This is the origin of the synagogue. So I always felt strange with the word temple. I could never really get it when I got here about 20 years ago as the emissary from the Jewish agency to Detroit, and I saw these temples around, and I couldn't figure out what are they doing there. I really didn't know. So when we think about the synagogue, when we think about this incredible invention of this people, of our people, like every invention, it's not enough to invent, you need to implement. And in order to implement, you need to be creative all the time. And in order to be creative, you need to learn. And in order to learn, you need other people. And you need new ideas. And you need to be able to host other people. Remember the hotel? So, hosting me about 20 years ago was something that none of you thought about. Well, neither did I. I was traveling during Yom Kippur, going from one service to the next, trying to figure out what is this community all about. I'm talking about Greater Detroit. Pluralistic, exceptional. And stumbling, literally stumbling, on the way back home, near your temple. And looking at this and saying, wait a minute, let me switch away from Israeli way of thinking of Yom Kippur. You don't drive on Yom Kippur in Israel if you don't know. And how do you know that it's a Yom Kippur? A place where you know by going near a parking lot and seeing that it's full. So I see the Birmingham temple, the parking lot is full, I decide, okay, I'm coming in. Not easy to find a parking spot, but I did. And I walked in, and one of the ushers hands me the Siddur. And I sit down, I open the Siddur, and I said, whoa, this feels like home. This is a bit different, but it basically feels very much like home. And it is. It became a home. It became a place to explore. It became a place to dialogue in the traditional rabbinical way of two people not agreeing with each other. The reason that we were able to sustain ourselves as a people is because we invite this kind of dialogue. So when Sherwin invited me to start studying to become a rabbi, I said to him, how are we going to do this? I'm in Israel. This is happening in America. And he said, challenge. And so it was. Many of you know my parents, Professor Yaakov Malkin and Felice Malkin, who are great friends of this temple and this movement. And hopefully tomorrow at some point you will be able to see on the website a bracha, a blessing that my father gives this temple. And in it, a short lecture, 5 minutes, 5.4, about the future and about the synagogue. I want to conclude with a few things. First of all, to remind you that it is very important that we are all believers. We believe in what ought to be. We think we know what ought to be. We believe in justice, we believe in equality. We are believers in what ought to be. Both Sherwin and my father, who were brothers to the cause, believed that we should be implementing what the positive, rather than negating what we don't want or what we don't believe. And you have to think that you have a home in Israel. You have 27 rabbis that have been ordained. Some of them live up north, close to the Golan, and some of them live down south, close to Eilat, and many of them in the middle of Israel. Some of them are teachers in schools and make exceptional changes within the schooling system in Israel. There are 7 of them who have started congregations. Many of us do ceremonies, hundreds of ceremonies a year. Amazing. Who would believe that anybody would want it? Sherwin did. He knew. He believed. So this home of believers is there in Israel. And this chain is a chain that started very many years ago with a story from the Bible, which is read in many congregations today. This is a story of a struggle between man and God. This is a story of a time where men actually physically struggled with God. This person's name may have been Jacob. And Jacob struggled with God. So it says in the Bible. And how do we know that? Because we are called the people of Israel and not the people of Jacob. Jacob's name was changed because in Hebrew, to fight with someone is to lisrot. And because he was able to overcome God, it says he is called Yisrael. In other words, El is God. Yisra is overcame him by fighting. So the name is Yisrael, the man or the entity that was able to overcome God. That is the name of our people. That is the name of a people that can stand up to any challenge, to any new challenge. So it's up to us to define our difficulties and as challenges. It is up to us to celebrate what it is we achieved. So Chag Sameach, happy celebration.